Good evening and welcome back to this episode of the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by Korey Karbowsky, you know him as Korey39, and Wil Masisak, who is teaching us how to count at the moment.
But I was counting how many, what season of the podcast this is. 17.
Yeah.
Season 17. Wow. Korey wasn't even bored when we started.
Oh man, but who would have thought after we labeled this podcast the doom and gloom podcast last week, we would have quite a few positive things to talk about. So as we were told on the message boards, we tend to be a little too negative at times, so we're going to try to flip that trend this week. However,
I tried that last week. I tried to be positive last week.
Right. So before we totally flip over into the shiny, positive world of the Steelers and how they're, funny enough, they're the only team in the AFC North that won last week, and they're leading the division already, and all that jazz. The Steelers are cursed at punter. For the love of God, we can't have a punter if we bought it. And we did buy one. We bought one this offseason. It didn't even last half a game. I mean, that is the worst kind of luck. I swear to God, it's like the Chris Gardocki curse. Name me one other Steelers punter in recent memory that you can actually remember that was pretty good. Yeah.
Josh.
He was really good if you have to think about it. So
I mean, it's a long time ago, though, in fairness. Who was that kid? Went to New England. Miller, right? Josh Miller.
No, I don't know. I couldn't even tell you.
That's 20 years ago.
We should be conditioned that the Steelers are just always going to have average punting because that's what we do on the opening day of free agency. What do we go do? Sign a premier punter, and then we don't get to have him kick all year long. All right.
And our coach loves punting. He loves setting out the punt team, so it's a real double, barrel problem.
Yeah, but okay, that was the one glaring negative, was like we don't get to have our punter that was supposed to change the field for us this year. Now we're back to Corliss Waitman. So who's okay. Who shouldn't be a starting punter, but it is what it is. So.
He's never in a hurry.
Never in a hurry.
Corliss
Gotcha.
Corliss Waitman, come on, man.
Sorry. I guess I'm still in my thoughts with not having time.
Cry and let it out, man. It's okay. You're among friends.
Everybody hurts. Oh, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Don't worry.
Oh, the podcast karaoke. We've got to set up an episode.
Oh God, I don't know if we want to segment.
you have to have a song to talk about your take.
Oh gosh, that would be hilarious. that would be great. But there were quite a few positive things. I'll kick us off with one. Our defense is still our defense, but we can still rush the passer pretty well. And it's probably the one thing I didn't think I was going to count on in week one, was just I figured we would look a little sluggish. It's week one, not quite in sync. Pass rush was there. We did a pretty good job. Started off a little bit slow in run defense, got a little better as the game went on. But let's kick it to you, Will. I mean, what are some positive things you saw from week?
Man, I can't go any further without saying how good would Chris Boswell be if he played in a dome every week? Like, it's not just that he hit field goals. He splits the uprights. Like, the dude is completely on. And that's coming from a cold start. That's like, camp, practice. Don't really have a lot to do, try this and that, and then just come into week one and bomb field goals. And if we need 3 more to win that game, he would have made them. I'm pretty sure.
It's funny you say that, because he actually would have had an attempt at a 7th if we didn't have a false start, which would have been a record for him. 7 made field goals in the game.
Yep. Also, and 8 is the NFL record. He almost made that.
Wow.
I mean, when you think about how that game was going, if Atlanta had scored another score, but they might have trotted him out for another or two. So anyway, he was tremendous, and including the one with Scotty Miller. How about the Scotty Miller story, Korey? I know you're the special teams guy. Or on Friday, coach was looking for like, all right, well, we should figure out who is our emergency long snapper or emergency holder, like who's ever done this. Anybody do this like in high school? And Scotty Miller said, yes, I think he lied. Do you know this? Did you hear this story, Korey? Like he had never done it. I don't think he'd ever done it in a game. And he was like, sure, I can do it. And so on Friday, they practiced a couple times. It looked good. And so they tossed him in the game. And then the snap he got was like not exactly like routine. He made a great spot, put it down. But Chris Boswell was like, look, man, I don't care how you get it down or how long it takes. It's like, if you put it down on that spot, I'm going to kick it through. So,
yeah.
But I mean, come on. And his reward, Scotty Miller, is that he's probably going to be deactivated this week, which is hilarious. So,
well,
anyway.
And then the one positive other thing on Chris Boswell that I did not know about, and I caught this during the game because they threw it up there as a stat. Apparently, Chris Boswell holds the best percentage record for field goals over 50 yards. That I did not know that.
Wasn't there a time when he wasn't even allowed to attempt a 50-plus field goal at Heinz Field, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me, Acrisure. Because I feel like there was not that long ago where they were like, we're afraid he doesn't really have the range for that here, and no one's ever hit one in the stadium from that distance. And now he's I don't know, is it like, is he doping? Like, what is happening?
Well, the problem with Acrisure, it is one of the hardest places in the NFL to kick. Like, it's probably, like, based on wind, it might be the hardest because Denver, you get wind, but it's high altitude.
And the weather is always nice there.
Yeah. Lambeau's cold, but like Lambeau itself isn't like, the stadium isn't fighting against you. It's a wind tunnel down on the field. So there's a reason why the farthest is like 56 or 57. It's what I think the lowest in the NFL, just because it is awful to kick there. Do I have to say something positive? You guys have covered the positive stuff.
I definitely think there's more positive stuff out there.
Maybe you should be talking than Jeremy, because I'm not. I mean, there was the defense. Okay, all right. The defense, the new additions in the secondary of the defense. Like, we know what TJ Watt can do, and the defensive line had its moments of being dominant. It was like up and down a little bit for them, but for the most part, they did great. But the new secondary additions, I was really impressed with Deshaun Elliott. We haven't had strong safety play like that in a long time. And I know Ryan Clark was officially a free safety because he was playing with Troy Polamalu, but he made, Deshaun Elliott made plays that reminded me a little bit of Ryan Clark. He doesn't have that, super burst that Minka has in anticipation, but he made really, really great plays. He was also, I think, still standing out on special teams, which he has been the whole preseason. So hats off to him. Beanie Bishop made a play at the end and I think held his own pretty well for his first time in the game. And how about Dante Jackson? I mean, like, honestly, Dante Jackson might have had more impact in that game than Deontay Johnson had in any game the last 2 years that I can remember off the top of my head in terms of impact. So how great for those guys. Those are really positive additions.
About to say, Korey, I'm not going to let you get away with not talking up Dante Jackson after you were telling me all offseason to chill it with my negative thing about that trade. So I definitely want you to talk about Dante Jackson.
Yeah, no, he balled out. And granted, the Falcons receivers, we said, weren't a thunderous unit, but Kirk Cousins, every time he threw over there, it was just nothing. Getting zeroed out over there. I think the defense, I mean, we figured the D-line was going to be good. I didn't expect Kirk Cousins to look as bad as he did. I'd be pretty concerned if I was a Falcons fan.
Yeah.
But this is a Steelers podcast, so we will slide past that. The defense looked good. I really, really like the defense. It doesn't change my overall concerns that there's very little secondary depth, although Edmonds being signed to shore up the position a little does help. So I will give them that. But in terms of the starters, it's kind of what I at least hoped to see. I wasn't sure if we'd get it, but that was encouraging. I'm not going to dog on the offense. The running game had some flashes. I think Najee looked better than he did pretty much all last year, even if the yards per carry wasn't pretty. But I don't know. You guys can tell me if I'm crazy, but a lot of people are giving Arthur Smith a lot of props considering we didn't score a touchdown.
That is certainly the narrative out there. That, oh my gosh, it was night and day better than it has been.
Well, I was running down the list of for you guys on a text thread,
Yeah.
the kudos. I mean, like all the praise of Arthur Smith from all corners of the sort of the call them the beat writers, the main people that write about the Steelers, and even people who are not usually very complimentary about the offense. But I don't know, man. It's like I saw the bones of something that resembles an NFL offense, but it's, first of all, really, really hard to tell with a quarterback who's not really I'm going to say this in a way that it's going to sound more negative than I actually mean it. He's not really a competent NFL quarterback. He's a great athlete who can make some plays and actually made a couple of really good downfield throws. So I'm not taking that away from him. I'm not saying he can't do anything, but I'm saying in terms of like the basically playing the position and, reading the field, getting the ball out, feeling the pocket pressure, delivering the ball on time and on target, like the kind of stuff that keeps your offensive momentum going down the field. They don't really have that guy in Fields playing, so it's a little bit hard to judge, to be too harsh on the fact they didn't score any touchdowns or whatever. But then you see like that there were multiple pass plays where they didn't even send a receiver into the middle of the field. And it's like, I understand that you would rather be safe. And his explanation, Arthur Smith's explanation, was that he was trying to stay away from Jesse Bates, so Jesse Bates didn't wreck the game. But you got to at least send a receiver in the middle as a decoy, don't you? Don't you have to attract some attention somewhere through the middle of the field, like cross a guy through the zone or something? You look at the targets are all outside, and it made me feel like they didn't even trust Justin Fields enough to give him the option of a receiver in the middle of the field. And that's really what that game plan was about. But that to me is like, you play against a team with better corners, which they're going to do this week, then that really, if you come up with a similar strategy like that, there are going to be some balls in danger on the outside.
I think my thing is, and actually, I just couldn't really get past the no touchdowns for all the positivity I saw online.
Mhm.
So, but I did want to shout out Zach Frazier played a phenomenal. When you look at that whole game, and that was something we all were so high on him. I think the thing that kind of gets me with the offense is if you pull up the passing chart from last year to this year, it's going to look the exact same. And so that's why I'm not even really like 17 for 23 with 156 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 picks. There's a Kenny stat line like that somewhere,
That's what it looked like. I mean, it looked like Kenny Pickett, who was a better runner.
Yeah.
Honestly,
so like
the same issues early in the game with accuracy to the sideline, and you're just like WTF. And then he throws some deep ball that George Pickens catches, regardless of whether it's exactly on target. It doesn't matter. He makes it look good. So yeah, that was a bit like that. Sorry, Korey, go ahead.
Oh yeah, but that's kind of my thing where, Arthur Smith might be bringing different running plays to the table than Canada was. Canada, I can't even remember what it was. I erased it from my mind, but there was one run play that I was banging. We run this every time on 1st and 10. But this is a good litmus test week, because if you look at the Broncos safeties, which I'm sure we will later, those are not guys who really strike fear into me. So we're going to find out, I think, real quick, if we have been dealing with the Tomlin offense for about 6 years, or if this is just something that, Arthur Smith really was just avoiding Jesse Bates. But that's going to be something where I'm really interested just to see how we plan to attack it, because I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be really dejected if it's the same kind of passing against the Broncos, because that means we're in for basically the same offense we've been in for the last 3 years. And, it's a head coach thing, not an OC thing. So.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say about the offense, it couldn't not get better in a sense, because not every play that, like, we ran more than 10 plays that didn't look like one another. Like under Canada, we got so used to yep, I know exactly where this play is going. Where it's like, at least on Sunday, where it's like, well, it could go that way or go that way, or maybe we'll run this time or something. At least under Arthur Smith, there was a shroud of mystery to a degree of what we might be doing on offense, as where with Canada, like, all the other defenses in the league were like, yeah, we recognize this. This is game film. They're going to move the fullback here and they're going to try to run right there. And we're just going to blitz the shit out of this so they can't run there. It's like, that's what we dealt with for, so many games last year. And maybe this year, a little less of that. So,
I mean, I hope that you're right. but here's what I'll say. Matt Canada in college, when he was at Pitt, the thing that people thought he was going to bring with him when he came to Pittsburgh was a lot of pre-snap motion and different misdirection to give deep, buy an extra beat for the run game and other stuff, right? And I think Matt Canada kind of started more that way. And if you remember that first year with Ben, then they were like, well, Ben doesn't really move that well, so you have to dumb down the motion and all the other stuff or whatever. And then it never really kind of like went back to that. And I'm just wondering if, for when you have a head coach, it's all about this execution. It's like the difference between a play working and not working is less about the design or scheming something in the schematics and more about execution, right? So, I think his opinion would be if you line up for a run play where everybody knows it's coming, but you execute correctly, you're still going to be successful. It's a certain way of thinking about football that, he makes millions of dollars doing it and I don't, so maybe he's right. But I hope that this doesn't sort of, get simplified down as time goes on rather than adding more things to the playbook. Like I never feel like during the season that the Steelers offense under any coordinator gets better as the year goes along. Like the last time I remember seeing an innovation was they added Todd Haley added a middle screen. It was like a fake wide receiver screen and then a middle screen behind it. Saw it first time about weeks, 12 in the season, and I was like, "This is amazing! Great call." He added what was the tight end who arrived injured? That was what's
McDonald.
That? No, the receiving tight end from the Colts.
Ebron.
Yeah,
Eric Ebron.
Is it Ebron? Yeah. Anyway, that they set up they faked a wide receiver screen and had the tight end take off down the field, so it was like a pump and go almost off the screen or screen and go for the tight end up the seam. Great call. Actually, something that was they were the first ones I saw do that under Haley, and then other teams adopted it. Now it's like a staple. The Chiefs use it all the time. Anyway, point being, I don't remember anything getting added into the Steelers playbook that you didn't see in week one. So to me, this is the test. I'm evaluating Arthur Smith better when I see him with a competent quarterback, and I'm going to evaluate him better when I see the offense grow rather than, whatever you got in camp is what you got. And now we're moving forward and we're going to run that over and over again and hopefully get it right. So I the little caveat, yes, I see the framework of something that resembles more like, it's almost as if some caveman watched the San Francisco offense and was like, okay, like we're going to do something like that. That's sort of what it felt like to me, which is not a bad thing. That's the best offense in the league. So
if I could give one little nugget on like motions in general, super old school guys won't be the biggest fans of motions, and here's why. So when you motion as an offense, you're motioning because you're trying to clear someone out, trying to get space, all sorts. There's a couple different reasons to run a motion. However, there's also a lot of things a defense can do with the motion. And so you could fire the dude backside where it came from. You could slant the D line. You could slant the line. You could bounce the linebackers. You could roll. So with how the NFL is today, teams are doing everything. Teams are doing a bunch of different stuff that kind of handle motions. They're not going to give you, oh, we're doing this when you motion, because then you're just going to get axed on motions all game. So that's kind of a thing where when you don't know what the defense is going to give you and you aren't an offensive-minded guy, you're going to kind of be scared off of motions because you want to know what you're going to get, and you're going to say, oh, let's go beat them with what we have. You don't want to take the chance of, well, what if they blitz this guy off the backside of our duo when we motion away, and then now, we get stopped for a loss because being behind the chains is like a criminal for like guys like Tomlin. So that's, I think he definitely just wanted that kind of, question mark out of the equation. And so I think because once you kind of like, because I was coaching, past couple of months before I got my job, and that's one thing where you motion, you weren't really sure what the defense is giving you, and that's something where I think Tomlin prescribes to that.
Well, that's the Steelers lining everybody up and spending the entire play clock, before they snap it, so that they can understand exactly what they're going to get from the defense. But I was going to say, in thinking about motion, the way you guys were talking about it, is, to me, it's way less important what happens before the snap than, the most important thing is the half a second or second after the snap, because like if you watch the Miami Dolphins, for instance, just in their sort of ordinary run play, right? Not nothing super tricky or whatever. They have a misdirection built in to the beginning of the play. That's after it's snapped, they'll give you a motion for a step or two that's in the wrong direction from where the running back is going. So instead of just like following the fullback through the hole and having a pretty good idea that as long as I get there, I'm going to be able to make a play, they make guys hesitate. And it's if you have a really speedy running back like Achane, then he can.
Everyone.
What's that?
Everyone in their backfield's sub 4.35.
Right. So my point is, they loaded up on guys like that specifically so they could do this. It's like, if you just get the linebackers hesitating for a second, that's a 5 or 6 yard gain, right? So I do think that there is and when you have the difference between an elite quarterback and a very good quarterback, even in the NFL, is their post snap read, and what defense, and a difference between a great defense and a good defense a lot of times is the look that they give you pre snap, and then where they transition from that and the ways they can go. The thing that made Troy Polamalu an amazing player was the difference between what he showed pre-snap and what he was capable of doing post-snap in like the first second was like nobody else has ever been like that, really. So I do think that, I'm interested to see where this goes. I see as much of that post-snap misdirection and or craftiness in the offense. Like I said, that's the thing about Kansas City, San Francisco, Miami. When you think of like these teams with where the offense is really the key, like where it's something more than just the sum of the players. That what they're doing post snap. Of course, with the Chiefs, they have Mahomes who can read post snap. Like, he knows what's coming before you even throw it at him, basically, and can react to it before you've even finished doing it. So that's a big plus. But like Miami, their quarterback's not that great, but they're able to do that on offense, I think, because of the way that they put the defense on their heels a little bit. So I hope this is a development, and I know that's what Arthur Smith is supposed to be able to do, but I want to see it. I want to see it in practice, and I'm very curious to see that blossom into more of a passing game. This may not be the week. I get the feeling this is going to be a week where the Steelers run even more. They ran the most of anybody last week in the NFL, and I have a feeling they're going to run more than that this week. But that's for the next segment.
Gotcha. Well, one last thing I'll take away from this last game. Korey, you highlighted, good rookie play of our, starting center, Zach Frazier. How about our rookie third-round pick at linebacker going out there and making some plays? Made a very critical tackle on what looked like a pass to Bijan Robinson that he was just going to walk in the end zone, and all of a sudden Wilson kind of avoids the block or gets off the block. I can't remember exactly how that happened. Ended up stopping Bijan for a 5-yard loss, and what very much looked like he was going to be gaining momentum for the touchdown. So shout out to rookie going out there, not having the game be too big and going out there and making some tackles. So that was a nice surprise. It was also nice to see him to just be out there as a linebacker and actually like dropping into coverage and making things difficult. We haven't had a linebacker that could do that since Ryan Shazier, honestly. So it was nice to see.
I was surprised they got him on the field as much as they did. He was on for an equal number of snaps to Landon Roberts, which I was surprised by. It's because they played less dime than they have in the past couple of years. But I guess that's because, as someone pointed out to me when I said, well, they play so much dime, how are they going to have Patrick Queen come off the field or whatever? But they just, the person was like, well, they didn't have the linebackers before, but now they have Peyton Wilson. So, and this week, he might play more, I guess. That we'll get to that Patrick Queen story. But yeah, very impressed by what he did. It's not, just keep your fingers crossed.
Right.
Peyton Wilson some health.
But yeah, with that, let's start talking about some matchups heading into the Denver game. Let's kind of move forward here. As far as I really like our ability this week to match up as far as our defensive backs versus their wide receivers. No one really scares me as a wide receiver in Denver. I know a lot of that's, on their rookie quarterback, Bo Nix, who's starting. He's got to deliver the ball and all that. But I like our matchups. I think Joey Porter Jr. is like the perfect guy to put on a, Cortland Sutton, big physical guy who's not really going to beat you over the top. He can because of positioning and stuff, but he doesn't really have that burst that he once used to have. Dante Jackson can, kind of fly around with, no, it's not Tez Johnson. That's the current Oregon receiver. Troy Franklin, the Oregon receiver who graduated, excuse me. He can kind of run with Troy Franklin. And after that, it's Marvin Mims, a collection of other guys, but I like the secondary's ability to, match up with the others. Sorry, Will, did you have
just going to say Josh Reynolds is really the guy that was their number 2 last week.
Josh Reynolds, thank you. Very sad.
And yeah, I do agree with your assessment though. I feel like those guys are, they're dealing with a rookie quarterback right now, and a rookie quarterback in his first start, and you could tell from their body language that they weren't exactly fighting through every route to get open and make every play. Like, I understand how it is. It's like, if you get to the point where you don't expect a guy to make anticipatory throws and whatever, then maybe you go through them. I don't know. I mean, I'm not wired that way, but I can imagine I'm not a diva NFL wide receiver either. Best matchup by far. Thank you for letting me have it. I thought when you started, Jeremy, I thought for sure you'd go to this is Patrick Surtain against George Pickens. That's the matchup. I mean, I in general, I feel like the game is a very bad matchup for Denver. The stuff where they're sort of a little bit weaker, like stopping the wide runs, for instance, and cutback lanes. That's something that the Steelers did well in Atlanta last week. I thought there were chunks that they got a couple of times where they had more success in the run game. It was with cutbacks. They're also they like to play man on defense. They're very susceptible to quarterback runs. So yeah, from that standpoint, and their offensive line dealing with the Steelers front is just, they're not really set up for, they're going to get overwhelmed by TJ Watt and company. So those things don't favor Denver at all. But Patrick Surtain and George Pickens is that's an elite matchup. Patrick Surtain, at least top 3 corner in the league, maybe better than that.
Just got paid like a top 3 corner too.
Yeah, and George Pickens, we're obviously really big fans of his talent, and I think he's, but his week 1 performance was really terrific. Like, especially given the parameters of what the offensive coordinator was willing to do and what the quarterback was willing to do. I thought George Pickens stepped up and did everything that he had to do and more last week. That was a positive that I should have mentioned earlier. But I wonder if, what does last week's Steelers offense look like if you don't get the big plays downfield of George Pickens? Because I think the only way that I can see them getting more dynamic downfield plays from Pickens, if Surtain is on him the whole game, is to get him, matched up and more or less one-on-one and do some in-breaking routes and throw deep middle, which is something that the Steelers have shown an extreme desire to not do in recent years. So anyway, I think that's just an excellent matchup, period. And I expect it to be absolute battle all day long, which I'm really looking forward to watching.
Korey, well, how about a matchup from you?
Well, maybe he ends up better, but I think we will never see anything closer to playing Kenny Pickett than what we will see this week. Because the Broncos are going to have a nice U-shaped offense, just like the Steelers have the whole time. It's going to be a lot of I mean, there were some comps coming out. I thought Nix was a little better, but I think as the skeleton is very much in the Kenny Pickett kind of mold, and I'm just really interested to see if that's the kind of quarterback that Mike Tomlin almost fears in a way, which is why he liked Kenny Pickett. But that's going to be, not much of this. This team doesn't really scare me in any form or fashion. And, of course, we all picked a loss last week. And from how we're talking, it sounds like we're all picking a win. So we'll see how this goes. But there's just, Pat Surtain, George Pickens is like a, headliner, big time, super heavyweight fight. And then just the rest of the roster, there's not really much to be excited for on the Broncos, at least from my point of view. Riley Moss was around, flying around everywhere last week, but cornerback tackles are always a little weird because you're giving up tackles. That means you're probably giving up catches as well.
He was to be fair. I watched the game. I don't know if you guys saw it or not. The Denver Seattle game. Yeah, there was one play where it was an extremely underthrown sideline ball, and the receiver Lockett happened to be looking when the ball went in the air and made a huge adjustment to come back and get it. And Moss slipped a little bit on his way back, made a tackle. So there's one. But mostly the Seattle was running the ball to the exterior. And so the corners they wanted the corners and safeties and linebackers on the outside to make plays because they weren't having much luck running it up the middle. So I think that's where a lot of that came from. I thought he played a pretty good game for week one. And also, you got to appreciate the fact that when you're the number 2 corner opposite Patrick Surtain, you're going to get 3 or 4 or 5 times the targets than you might normally get, just because they're going to avoid the other guy very much. So which they did. So I think there's that. On the Bo Nix thing, I think the Pickett comparison is fairly apt. The Nix is a little bit better on what you might call secondary plays, like the stuff where, if he's not supposed to, it's not drilled into him to get rid of the ball way too early or to dump it off to a running back too late, which he did a lot in this game. Like he could have trusted his checkdowns a little bit more and gone to them sooner, but he waited so long that there was no play to be made there. But he did make a couple of really good plays with his feet, where he escaped the pocket going forward, kept his eyes downfield, and made some nice throws down the field. And in the red zone, I think he's better than Kenny Pickett. So the thing is, with this matchup, I'm not sure how much they're going to get in the red zone. So I don't think it's as big a factor. It's just like I said, I just feel like Denver is trying to do a lot of the same stuff that Pittsburgh is trying to do, but they don't. They have the guy's a rookie playing his first game. I mean, maybe if this matchup were in week 9 or 10, it might be a little bit different. But yeah, it was not he didn't play as bad as like Will Levis played last week, or Deshaun Watson, but yeah, it was not great. He had a few 2 or 3 moments where you're like, okay, that's the golf shot I hit today that makes me want to come back and play golf next time. But that was about it.
Yeah. If I had to throw him out there, I'll say Alex Singleton is a tackle machine. Cody Barnes a tackle machine. Baron Browning.
Very good. No, their front, they will give the Steelers some trouble on their front. It's more like the middle of the field. Here's the thing. Arthur, here's the matchup for you, Jeremy. It's Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin and Justin Fields against the middle of the field, because that's really where their weakness is, as opposed to Atlanta, where it's like the strength of their defense is the middle of the field. So
and all those guys are not coverage guys. Those are all 3 like bigger tackle, run defend types, and your D-line has to help you out on that, and then their D-line is not very scary. So that's where they kind of get hurt, where you're going to get onto them.
Well, here's the thing. J.L. Skinner, who missed all of last year with the injury, came back this year. He made like every special teams play. I know in like the first quarter, he tackled the opening kickoff. He recovered a muffed punt, and I think he made a tackle on the next kickoff. It's like, there's a guy, there's a safety that's arguably better and has a better pedigree than the 2 guys that are playing at safety right now. So maybe they will turn to him at some point, and that will probably he's a playmaker. He's a guy that if you put him in the middle of your defense, can do a lot of stuff and can play high and low, and is a real force in the run game, at least based on what he did before. And he looks healthy. So maybe that would be a sort of a wild card for them. I know that I spoke with, you guys remember Blue Ridge Bronco, who was our one of our participants in the Steeler Fury mock and our drafted team the last couple of years. And Gabe was in the hospital this week. So shout out to him. He got out of the hospital today. Couldn't join us, but he was going to join. But he did mention the same thing that I just said, which was he doesn't really understand why they play the safeties that they're playing and why they're not playing Skinner more, considering he's popping on special teams right now and feels like, he's earning his chance to get up there.
Yeah. Well, first off, good to hear that you're out of the hospital, Blue. You're my boy, Blue. I had to. But on the other thing, you guys were teetering around the last and final matchup, but I think if that could help this week, it would involve us using the middle of the field. So who the hell knows if it'll happen? And against those linebackers that you say are much better against the running coverage, but it's time to figure out if Freiermuth is worth $12 million a year. I mean, it's like here is the quintessential matchup where it's like Freiermuth can make a big difference, but we also throw him the ball.
We didn't even get to talk about that. That was after the podcast.
Yeah. So
I mean, guys, come on. We're once again can't be fully judged. I mean, I don't think you're going to be able to really fully judge Pat Freiermuth's worth with either of these quarterbacks because they're both totally already averse to throwing in the middle of the field, and now you put them in a Tomlin offense.
Mm-hmm.
I just like if what Pat Freiermuth is going to do is pretty much what he did last Sunday, then it wouldn't matter if he was Antonio Gates. It's like he's not really going to make any plays. So
let's
3-yard out routes. He's running 3-yard out routes, and on one play he had like an out and up where he got 10 yards or something, and it's like there's no challenge to the defense at all from the tight end position, even though they used the most 4 tight end sets. They played 14 offense on like 20 plays. I don't know if I've ever heard of a team doing that before. That's madness.
Yeah, but I mean, let's throw some flag routes in there, some pylon throws. It's like, for the love of God, if we're going to
hit. I don't know, either of you guys ever play defense? I know, Korey, you were an offensive player, right? Did Jeremy ever play defense at any level of ball?
No.
I played linebacker. It's sophomore and junior.
Okay. I mean, the thing is, it's all about if you perceive on defense that you pretty much know what they're trying to do to you, even if it's a tough thing to try to figure out. And usually, if you work with the other guys on the defense and you have a scheme fit where it's like, okay, this is what we do when this happens, and we communicate ahead of time, and we got a plan, and you guys might be a really good athlete on the other side, but even if you're sitting on it and you have expectation about what's going to happen, and it falls that way, chances are you're not going to give up a lot of big plays doing that, even if you have a athletic mismatch. But if you are threatened when you're a linebacker, it's like you're basically hook, curl, and then flat almost all the time in pass coverage, and it's like a rare linebacker that is able to carry routes up the seam. And it's like, if you don't even try to make their linebackers carry you up the seam, you're giving them a free pass. You're basically saying that you might as well have Fred Warner in the middle of your defense because we're not going to attack you. So I don't know. Like the guys, Atlanta's, the linebackers that they had in the middle are guys that are Trey Anderson, and Ellis. Those are good athletes. It's like, so they're better athletes than Pat Freiermuth. So maybe that was a wise choice to not, worry about trying to pressure them and risk Justin Fields throwing to the middle of the field and having problems. But yeah, I like for Pat Freiermuth to be worth it, you'd have to see him in an offense where it's expected that he's going to attack all different areas of the field and make a lot of different plays. I mean, he doesn't have to be Travis Kelce, but I'm trying to think of, Hunter Henry. I'm trying to somebody that feels like they have a little bit more all around to their game would be they're served. I know that seems like a lot of money for him.
What's the point of paying Pat when I could guarantee you Darnell Washington could have gone out and made the same plays in the passing game that he did and is 3 to 4 times the blocker. So that's my thing. It's if you paid Pat Freiermuth, you have to use Pat Freiermuth like he is a tight end that you paid for. And I'm a Darnell Washington super fan, but Darnell Washington could have done every single route that Pat did. And that's why I'm saying, 1 week, it's athletic linebackers, athletic safeties, okay. But this is a good week to tell what's the offense. Is it actually just the U offense forever? Or was it really just the match?
The U, the U forever.
But yeah, I mean that's my point. If you're going to go pay a tight end that type of money, I'm expecting him to catch between 5 and 8 touchdowns every year, and have the 700 yards of offense or catches and all that. So it's like this is a great week to do it, especially if we expect the Pickens and Surtain matchup, to be really pick your poison on every play. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. There's got to be someone else out there that has to help you move the ball. You can't just run the ball and throw it to George all day. So,
how about the uninspiring debut of Van Jefferson? Yikes!
Oof.
Were you inspired before?
Was that what?
Were you inspired before?
No, I mean I thought Van Jefferson was very meh player even in his big year that he had with the Rams. I don't think it was really so much about him, but I'm trying to remember. We've had a couple of veteran wide receivers, come in for the Steelers and get a starting spot and like be gone in 6 weeks. Either written out of the offense and then inactive and then gone. And it sort of reminded me of some of those previous performances. So yeah, like I'm a Justin Hunter comes to mind. But it's like you're not getting open really. He blocked like some of the worst wide receiver blocking you've ever seen in your life, and he's supposed to be a blocking wide receiver. I mean, I'd rather have the dude they had last year who was so forgettable that I can't even remember. Yeah, Allen Robinson. I'd rather have Allen Robinson, and I don't really think he did anything, but he was at least a competent blocker.
Quick straw poll: who gets more catches this year, Michael Pruitt or Van Jefferson?
Michael Pruitt by far. I mean, it's like Michael Pruitt was a bigger part of the offense than any of the other tight ends and any of the other receivers last week.
So
yeah, well,
Van Jefferson's our number 2 receiver. So
yeah, but not only on paper, not in reality. I don't know.
So who is
the Washington thing? It's like he's open. Justin Fields looks right at him in the middle of the field for like a 15+ yard gain and throws essentially a 3-yard out to Pat Freiermuth instead. So it's like, okay, they don't want him to throw in the middle of the field. And so even it's not, somebody would, a lot of the critics of Darnell Washington would be like, well, they're not throwing to him because he's slow out of his stance and he doesn't get open, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, even when they were in the red zone, a guy doesn't have to run anywhere. He just has to be big and, make a move. One move, throw it to him is a touchdown. So
I will, as big of a Darnell Washington fan as I am, if Arthur Smith goes a full season without getting production out of him, I'll own up. The dude's never going to be a receiving threat. But
if they don't let him throw, if you don't let your quarterback throw to the guys that are open because you're afraid of the risk of throwing to guys, even if they're open, if you see that balance as it's not worth the risk to throw a ball in the middle of the field, even when the guy's open there, when I can just take the safe throws to the outside and let our defense win the game. If that's going to be their philosophy, then I'm not going to judge any receiver in this offense.
Yeah, and I'm going to take this opening, gentlemen, and Steeler Nation fans, to admit a special guest of the podcast this week. Jolene, you know her as Uganda's Joy on the message boards, is joining us via Colorado in the heart of Broncos country. Jolene, welcome to the podcast. And let me see here. I'm going to get her off mute here.
Hey,
Jolene, good to see you.
Hey, just checking. Your apartment complex hasn't been taken over by a Venezuelan gang, right?
Oh gosh.
Nope.
Thank goodness for that.
Good to know.
I'm on the other side of Colorado anyway, so
Oh, you're not. I thought you were. You're on the Western Slope.
Yes, Western
Okay, yeah,
Slope.
yeah.
So
How are the peaches? Better question when you're on the Western Slope this time of year.
they are all harvested. They were amazing. So have to wait another year for more.
Little tip for you, non-Coloradans: Western Slope peaches from Colorado are the best peaches in the world. And if you ever get a chance to get some, you'll agree with me on this. But
Oh yeah, well worth your money.
Sorry to
Yeah.
say, as a person that's only been to the Denver airport and never actually outside of that, I've never been to Colorado. So that's good to know. That's good to know. The peaches on the western slope of Colorado. I'll have to try to remember that if I ever make it out that way.
Yep, the peaches and the wine. I'm out to the Western Colorado for it.
I know that's more my speed. Get a bottle of wine and, or cider,
Well,
whatever.
there's plenty of wine on this show, but a different kind.
Yeah.
You got some H's in yours, huh?
It's great to have. I mean, your team, if I'm not mistaken, actually scored a touchdown last week, didn't you?
Yeah, by our QB.
Yeah, shot. I didn't know that was allowed in the first week, so we were
Yeah,
very
right.
surprised to learn that you could put the ball in the end zone. But thank you for joining us. I'm really glad that it's rare that we have an outside perspective from the opponent, or in this case, I'm wondering we've talked a little bit about the matchup already for all of us. I, of course, went straight to like Patrick Surtain versus George Pickens, which I think is even if you weren't a fan of either team, definitely a fun one. But what's your take on week one of the Bo Nix career, and how that game went for you and how it leads into this week? What are you thinking about it?
I'm looking at how much of a student Bo Nix is. He's a coach's son. He grew up in football. All throughout his collegiate career, if he had a bad game, he learned from it, came back the next game, and showed off. So I'm hoping that he's able to take week one from a very hostile environment with the 12s and learn from his mistakes, learn about the timing and how much faster things are going to be versus practice. Things get dialed up a notch. So many of his throws were behind receivers. So I think he's going to try placing the ball a little bit better this upcoming week, and adjust better. So, I mean, considering that he still completed 60%, over 60% of his throws, granted, under 10 yards, most of them. So, I think he's going to improve. And, but the receivers and running backs and all those guys, O-line, they have to carry their weight too. And 1 second. I have someone trying to talk to me real quick.
Oh, that's great.
You're good. I'm just hoping most of the improvement that happens gets done next week, not this week. But she makes a good point. Bo Nix, long storied career in collegiate football. I think left collegiate football with the most wins of any player in collegiate football. So, I mean, lots of collegiate experience there. I think it was 4 years at Auburn and then 2 years at Oregon. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he always showed something in college. So that's a good point that Jolene makes.
Yeah. I would say this when she's back with us, but Bo Nix definitely got with that first part of the game. It was clear like it was just so fast, and he was rushing on top of that. You know what I mean? That just the difference between the game is fast, and so you have to get rid of the ball, get it out of your hands. But beyond that, when you're actually rushing, your mechanics get off, and I mean, so but I do feel like it got better during the course of the game. He started making.
I agree.
And also, I don't really think the offensive, play calling did him a lot of favors early. They sort of like, we're going to anticipate that you're going to be scared shitless, And so we're going to like get plays that get the ball out of your hands in like a second, 1 yard downfield over and over again. But, you know, the problem with that is that it almost makes your job harder as a quarterback, because if guys aren't running normal patterns, the defense is just sitting. They start getting closer and closer and closer to the line of scrimmage. I don't know. You felt like I did, that it improved as the game went on?
I think so. I mean, he definitely got a little more careful with the ball. His 2 interceptions were ridiculous. But I was frustrated that Sean Payton removed the running game so quickly. You know, he should have been just keep pushing on that. Even if it's not working, try something else. But you got to keep those guys involved. Let's see what Javonte Williams, he had, I think, 10, maybe 12 snaps total.
Yeah.
He fell down on 3 of them.
Yeah.
That's definitely a cleat problem. Sorry.
Oh my gosh, that field was crazy. They were slipping all over the place. The one person that actually broke some tackles was Jaleel McLaughlin. According to PFF, he forced 3 missed tackles.
Okay.
On receptions, and he forced 4 missed tackles on rushes. And so he turned into RB1. Estime had an amazing run in the first play of the second quarter, and it was like a delayed handoff type of thing, and he took off, tried jumping over a guy, and fumbled as he came back down to the ground. And apparently he tweaked an ankle either on that play or the next one that he ran, and now he's on IR. It's like, hey, 2 carries and he's on IR.
Yeah, I saw that he's out for the year, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I saw that they put him on season-ending IR. It was either earlier today or late yesterday. I saw that, and I was like, man, that's a rough way to start your
I really like him, and I thought the runs that he did have looked great.
Yeah, so that's too bad for Estime. I don't know if you heard Jolene, but he's actually on season-ending IR.
Season-ending? Oh.
Yeah.
I only heard he was going to be like 4 to 6 weeks, but
maybe I saw it wrong, but I could have swore I got a notification that they were putting him on IR. So
short-term IR.
It's short-term,
so it could come back. Yeah.
I'm sorry, everyone. I misread.
You know, you almost gave Jolene a heart attack, for crying out loud.
Shout out to Laughlin, Hula Bowl legend, Emery Hunt favorite. I'm sure not too many people know Emery Hunt, but that was a guy.
Size is not a skill. Emery was on our show twice, so yeah.
Well, and McLaughlin is the type of running back that's given the Steelers fits in the past, where, our linebackers can't cover him out of the backfield and stuff like that because of his elite quickness and, his receiving ability, like Jolene said, and the forcing the missed tackles and stuff. He is very much that New England Patriots type of back that gave us fits for years.
Deion Lewis.
Yes, yeah, like that.
So, I mean, maybe Jeremy, maybe you have other questions, but I was just going to say, from your perspective, Jolene, did you see any of the Steelers Atlanta game? Are you previewing, scouting for what they're going to face?
I mean, I saw some of the highlights.
Your house and everything with kids, but
yeah. Considering that was an 11 o'clock game, I was at church. So I was able to see some of the highlights. Mostly watching Kirk Cousins, honestly, because he's on one of my fantasy teams. So
that's worse than the IR news from earlier.
Oh Lord. I was watching one of the pods this morning, and they were comparing him kind of to Peyton Manning's 2015 year, just the way that he's setting up in shotgun, and it's like, oh no. I don't want that year.
No, not for your fantasy team. I saw somebody had overlaid like a whole bunch of his passing attempts, and he was in the same position and didn't move, and they were all like, I'm standing here, I throw it. I'm standing here, I throw it. There was one time he moved, it was the touchdown to Pitts, but pretty much he stood on the spot, and as soon as the pass rush started to get to him, he got rid of the ball.
Right.
And that doesn't seem like a really successful strategy, but
not huge, but I mean, at least they have Bijan and some of these other guys to help carry him for a bit. So hopefully he can fully heal up here.
Well, I'm just kind of wondering what you thought about this matchup. But I mean, even if you didn't see a lot of the Steelers, only in the highlights, you probably have some kind of an idea about how they match what the Broncos do. My take is, that I said earlier when you weren't here, that I don't, other than the Surtain Pickens, which is actually pretty, not a lot of teams have a corner that can run with George Pickens. The rest of the matchup I don't think is very good for the Broncos. Like what the Broncos are good at and what the Steelers are good at, it doesn't favor anything.
Honestly, I'm definitely worried about the edges from Pittsburgh. I mean, TJ Watt is a force and a half. If he's lining up with McGlinchey, I'm scared. The Pittsburgh defense definitely it scares me a lot. So whatever points we might be able to get, I mean, we're just gonna have to hold on tight. The Broncos defense, I was very happy with the performance of the interior defensive line. Last year, they were one of the worst run defenses in the league. And I mean, yes, Kenneth Walker still put 100 on them, but it could have been so much worse. So, they reigned in the first half of the Seattle game. They did amazing. They got 2 safeties in a quarter, constantly putting pressure. They just got gassed in the second half because of 6 3-and-outs by the offense. So, if the offense can cooperate and maybe let them get some breathers, I'd like to see that. Offensively, McLaughlin, I think he's going to be one of the X factors. Same with Vele. Vele's a rookie, but he doesn't act like it. He actually caught all 8 of his targets versus Seattle. Had the most separation of any of the receivers. He was the only receiver to actually break a tackle.
He is my age, but he looked pretty good in the game. But yeah, he's like one of the oldest rookies you'll ever see. Probably, I bet he's top 10 oldest rookies of all time.
Yeah, but he's what, 25, 26?
I think he's older than that. Yeah.
I'm thinking 26.
I think he's pushing 27 at this point.
Because he coming out of Utah, so he did his mission trip and all that stuff. So he was similar situation to Garrett Bowles, coming into the league, being a much older rookie than everyone else. And of course, as a receiver, that just doesn't bode well for you.
Vele's 26. He'll be 27 in December.
Okay, there we go. 26. So he's a mature rookie.
Well, he plays, if you're going to be older, then come in the league and be like mature and ready to play. Right. So you skip through the era where he's, he's young and over enthusiastic, more enthusiasm and diva-ness than he deserves. And instead he came in polished and contributed right away, which is great. Right.
I mean, it's really hard to be full of yourself when you're a 7th round pick. So
you didn't meet Antonio Brown, apparently.
Well, he probably won't be in the league as long as Brown was, but anywho. So yeah, those two characters I'm expecting to see a lot of, both in the running game, the passing game. McLaughlin's just fast. Yeah, he has that other gear that many teams just don't expect right away. So, and he's very effective on the passing game. And Vele, he's actually really fast for how tall he is. He's 6'4", but he has a 4.47 40. He's actually faster than Rashee Rice, is what I found out, which is pretty amazing. They actually have the same 3-cone speed from the combine. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. I'm hoping that Sutton actually catches a couple more of his targets. He was 4 of 12 in Seattle, which is unheard of. Usually Sutton is very reliable. Josh Reynolds, just they don't have that chemistry yet. So we'll see. Yeah, I don't really have high expectations for this game. I'm hoping that altitude beats up Pittsburgh for us a little bit. So
well, it has in the past, for sure. Pittsburgh's record overall in Denver not so good.
So funny you say that. So in Evansville tonight, my parents are at a Right to Life dinner, and the man who beat Pittsburgh in the playoffs is there, Mr. Tim Tebow himself. And I said I would not go because he is there. I still hold that against him. If I ever meet him, I'm gonna let him know. But yeah, so funny little connection there. Tim Tebow's Evansville, Indiana tonight, of all things. So.
Oh, by the way, since you mentioned that play, the Steelers were the only team, I believe, in the NFL last week that did not run any cover zero, which is what they ran.
Wow.
They ran on cover zero in overtime in a game where the only thing that could beat them was a touchdown.
And then Demarius
Dick LeBeau, ladies and gentlemen.
It still hurts. It still hurts. Let's not talk about it.
But it's not like we think about this anymore. It's not like we're obsessed with it. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And just quickly, Garrett Bowles gonna play or not gonna play? What's the story?
According to press conference, he says 3 more days. So we'll find out. It'll probably be a game day decision. He was on the practice field today, so that's a good sign. He wasn't on the side field. That one is one of the concerning ones about Bailey. Apparently he has some bruised ribs and has been on the side field for the past 2 practices.
Well, I'm sorry if this will keep you up for the next 3 days, but the last time that TJ Watt played against McGlinchey, the Steelers absolutely got cooked. I mean, like, San Francisco stopped trying to score at halftime and still won 30-7. But TJ Watt had 5 quarterback hits, a tackle for loss, and 3 sacks against McGlinchey.
I don't doubt it. Yeah. Yeah.
So let us hope that works out better for somebody. I mean,
right.
From your point of view, you should hope that it works out.
Boy.
From
yeah.
our point of view, let's hope that Garrett Bowles is healthy. But I think TJ Watt ate Garrett Bowles for lunch too, if I recall.
He eats everyone, honestly. So
there's a couple of guys. Joe Thomas, right, was the guy who couldn't do anything against.
There you go.
Yeah, but it's Joe Thomas. I understand. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, but Joe Thomas was like his kryptonite, I think.
The tackles that can come against him are few and far between. So
Yeah,
it's just saying something on that. I imagine they're trying to scheme for that too. Try to maybe bring in an extra tackle, like in the tight end position, just to double team them as much as possible. I know they did that last year against Crosby in both Raider games, actually. They just went jumbo set so that at that time Russ Wilson could have some time. And that's
I remember him. He used to be a quarterback.
Yeah, right. It's something that most of Broncos country is pretty sad about, not getting a revenge game, it sounds like. So
I was just about ready to ask you, how does Broncos Country feel about not shoving it down his throat?
Most are pretty upset, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, I'm a little upset just for Russ that he can't try to have a revenge game against Denver. It works both ways there. So
right.
I
mean, he already robbed us of money. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh my word.
That would be like
and made a getaway out of town. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that'd be like Notre Dame paying Northern Illinois $1.5 million to come in and beat. Oh wait, that happened. That happened.
Yes.
Or Michigan paying Appalachian State 1.5. There's some of those payoff upsets are like the best.
Gotcha. Yeah. Funny enough, that Appalachian State Michigan game was the first game ever televised on the Big Ten.
Oh wow.
Yep, I remember
There's
watching.
some great trivia for you.
Brand identity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were thrilled with that one right off the bat.
I bet they were. Your show, Jeremy. I'm sorry, I got interested. We have a guest. I was excited. I was asking questions, but
no, you're good. No, that's what we wanted to. But there are some other games around the other NFL.
You're okay to stay with us for a minute, Jolene?
Sure, I'll stick around as long as you want me.
We're gonna,
absolutely.
We usually would pick a score. Yeah, we'll usually pick a score at the end of the podcast for the game of the week. But in the meantime,
yeah, but believe it or not, the world does not revolve around Mike Tomlin, the Steelers. Oh wait, okay,
amazing.
Yeah,
what?
But
other games on? Holy cow!
Yeah, honestly, my game of the week, and I really think this is the one to watch across the entire NFL. If you weren't watching the one tonight already, which is Buffalo,
don't say it. I'm typing. I'm not watching.
I was just gonna say Buffalo, Miami, no score.
Okay, good. Just don't say what
I don't even know the score.
Okay, good.
So I do know that my fantasy team is up quite big, and I won't say which players I have, so I'll just keep it at that. But I'm liking how this has turned out so far.
So Will, 5-second prediction.
For what? Buffalo, Miami?
Yeah.
It's over 80 degrees. Miami almost never loses when it's over 80 degrees. So even though I think Buffalo sort of, better quarterback and in some ways a better team, I like the Dolphins.
Okay. Well, we'll catch back up later.
Yeah, next week. You can embarrass me later. Yeah, exactly.
But honestly, I think the game of the week is the Bucks are head up to Detroit to take on the Lions. Lions are favored by 7.5 at home. And I thought the Buccaneers looked pretty good this past week. I know they didn't exactly take on, like the NFL's elite teams this past week, but they look pretty good. So, Jolene, since you are our guest, I'm going to let you start off with this one. So, like I said, the Lions are favored by 7.5. What is your prediction?
I'm saying Lions will win, but I don't think they're going to cover the spread.
I like that. Will.
I don't know. I think I'm just a little bit more down on the Lions than other people are. I think they're a solid team, but I don't see this juggernaut that other people have seen. I don't know what you guys thought about Jared Goff's performance this week, but I don't think he was all that good. It was one of the reasons that they had trouble. I didn't believe at all in Tampa Bay before last weekend, and probably it's a fluke. And they're not going to look like that the rest of the year. Like, it's week one is one of those things in the NFL where you get a lot of weird results. Like there was that year that Buffalo shut out the Patriots and to won 27-0 or something. And then the Patriots traded their star safety away, and then they ended up winning the Super Bowl. It was just but that week Buffalo killed them. So week one has a lot of weird results. I think I'm going to agree with Jolene. I think probably Detroit wins at home. But 7.5 is too many points.
Yeah, Korey.
I'm just not a big believer in the Bucks. I'm pretty simple. I think the Lions, even if they aren't as good, I think the Lions are still going to take this one. I think they cover. I think Laporta, he had a slowish week last week, so I think he's going to snap back a little bit. So I'm going to take the Lions to cover. But I think the Bucks are kind of in that range where they're going to be kind of like the Steelers, where they've got the tools to be about average every year, beat the teams they should, beat the teams they should, lose the teams they should, but I think this is one where I think the Lions are still just better, and I think they'll kind of flex their muscles a little bit.
Okay, I only have one thing to say about that. At least Tampa Bay has like 4 receivers worth rostering. Like, I don't know if
100%.
it's the case in Pittsburgh. I mean, they actually got a rookie receiver and got him a touchdown in week 1. I'm not even sure we could do that if we wanted to.
How you're allowed to have a rookie receiver who's good in the first game? What?
But I kind of agree with you, Korey. St. Brown did absolutely nothing in that game last week. Laporta really didn't do much either. I think they're going to get those guys back on track, and when that happens, it opens up just even more. Jameson Williams looked very good last week, so if they can get everyone going, I think they do have the potential to be that juggernaut of an offense. Their defense, needs to play up to their potential, but I think Detroit wins and covers at home. I think they're a tough team to beat in Detroit.
Jeremy, what do all those receivers underperforming have in common? The quarterback throwing it to them.
I get
you, that's the weakness of the weakness of Detroit is their quarterback.
I like Goff. I think he's better than what people give him credit for.
I'm not sure he's better than Baker Mayfield.
That's fair. It's fair. But I mean, he has a pretty good offensive line though, for the most part. So if that holds up.
I like it. I like his the weapons and the offensive line there are very good.
Yeah. So all right. So let's head off to a game which is definitely not the game of the week, but someone has to win. The Giants go visit the Commanders down in Washington, D.C.
Oh man.
Yeah, don't you just love the jumping competition there?
Oh, I thought for a second we were going to pick a Carolina game, and I was like, oh my god.
Oh God, no.
5 minutes of dead air.
Carolina has been banned from the pick'em this year. What's the point? But Commanders are favored by 1.5 at home. Korey, why don't you start us off here?
I don't know. I like Jaden Daniels. I think he's pretty talented. I just think Daniel Jones is just he's like a black hole for offense. He just cannot sustain drives no matter how much. Like he's been one of those guys where he wants to be an explosive runner, but he's not that explosive of a runner, and just throwing the ball. He doesn't get much help from his OC. They traded over. Did they trade Barkley? They let their best running back, one of the best backs in the league, sign away for the cost of Eric Gray and a mediocre tackle. I mean, that's where the thing with running back value kind of gets to me is, maybe running backs aren't worth much, but was it worth, a rookie back and a mediocre tackle? Like it's how you use that money. So I don't know. The Giants are kind of a mess. I think the Commanders are a mess too, but at least they're like a fun mess. So I'm going to go with the Commanders. I'm going to say.
I'm going to build off that really quickly and just say, I'm going to go Commanders. It's going to be really funny when the Commanders win this one and Joe Shane and Dable are on the other side saying, this is the quarterback we wanted to trade up for. So if you watch Hard Knocks, you can tell they definitely would have liked to move up for him. But I like Commanders here. They're young. They're kind of fun. So Commanders. Jolene, how about you?
Oh, trying to think. Because I do like experience over rookies, but at the same time,
funny that you're feeling that way right now.
Let me tell you. I mean, I'm not really betting on my Broncos this weekend, but being the first home game for Daniels, I think that's going to help him a lot. And so, yeah, I'd go with that 1.5. That they might win by like 3, but yeah, I could go with that. Yeah. So Washington over Giants.
All right.
I think this game's a gimme. I will make it a premium bet on the Commandos to win and cover in this game. I think they're going to cover it easily. The Giants are bad, guys. I mean, they're, especially with New England winning last week, I think Carolina and the Giants are the favorites right now for to get the top pick in the draft. So I think the Giants are going to get their quarterback next year. So they went about it in a very a bad way by signing Daniel Jones and having that cost them a lot of other stuff. But yeah, I think they still have offensive line problems. They have a serious quarterback problem. When Justin Fields has more than twice the quarterback rating of Daniel Jones, you're definitely something's wrong.
Yeah, something's hurting there.
That's what it was like. Let's say you were making a master plan. It's like, we're going to pay Daniel Jones for a couple years, let him under. You would think at some point the team would start to be good enough around him to where it's like, okay, now we're just being held back by Daniel Jones. Now we can go trade up and get a QB. No.
But their plan was thwarted because Daniel Jones got hurt before they could totally tank last year and get a high enough pick to get a quarterback. It's like if he had just stayed healthy, they would have been bad enough maybe to get in the top.
All right. Well,
I like that theory.
Let's up the competition for this next and final game before we get to our 5-star matchup of the week. This should actually be a pretty fun one too. The Rams are visiting the Cardinals. The Cardinals are favored 1. Will, I'm going to let you start off.
Toughest one to pick this week, I thought. Aside from the Green Bay thing, where it looks like the quarterback's not going to play, and that always is a weird setup. But the Cardinals, I think maybe are better than we thought they were. Once again, was it a week 1 mirage that they looked that good last week? Like they played well, I thought.
They were up 17-0 at one point.
I know. So that's what I'm saying is like, was that a fluke or are they actually pretty good? The Rams, I guess they're without Puka Nacua, right? So
he's out for 4 weeks.
I feel like they really missed that. Like, okay, it's great that they got the other receiver healthy back, but I wonder if they're just going to be out of sorts for a couple of weeks. It wouldn't shock me if they were. I'll take Arizona. If you asked me like 3 weeks ago to pick this game, I would have picked the Rams in a heartbeat, but I'm going to go with Arizona.
All right. Korey, how about you?
So I've been a little bullish on the Cardinals. I remember when we were talking about our sleeper playoff or NFC Championship picks or whatever, I kind of tossed them in there. I think I still like them, obviously, after last week, but I think the fact that Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't crack 17 miles per hour the entire game just means that he's going to go nuclear coming up. And because it's kind of how it always goes with these rookies, whenever you start getting too down on a guy who's clearly good, he's just going to come back and everyone's going to be like, okay, everything's good now. I'll tell you what, Greg Dortch, pretty fun. He's a little speedster. He's pretty fun. Health is always going to be a thing with a guy like that, but he's healthy this game. So with the Cardinals, was last week the prettiest ending? No. But I think with them, I think you're right about the Rams. I think they're going to be out of sorts. I'm going to take the Cardinals to pick up one
here. Maybe I'm going to fall on my sword again this week, but I'm sticking with the Rams. I picked the Rams last week to beat Detroit. They almost pulled it off.
Me too. Yeah.
Just got marched down their throat to end the game in overtime. I still like the Rams here. I like Stafford's experience. I think Demarcus Robinson can come in and kind of do the Puka Nacua role. I'm not saying he's at that level, but he's still a very talented guy. Tyler Johnson stepped up when they needed him to last week. Rely more on the tight end they just signed, whose name's escaping me, but he made a few good plays for them, moved the ball. I just kind of like the experience over here, and kind of a weird thing that a headline, I'm not exactly sure how it read, but Kyler Murray was asked about why Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't involved. And he was like, it's not my job to give the rookie wide receiver targets and catches. That's up to my offensive coordinator. You have to wonder if there's kind of a little bit more behind the scenes going on there. I don't know. But I like the Rams. It's just kind of an odd situation in Arizona, how they started off so hot, fell down the stretch, and now kind of a weird storyline coming out. It's like you have to wonder if there's maybe a locker room issue or something that we haven't really seen. but
yeah, maybe it kind of be hard going from being like super targeted and being the focus of the offense to
right.
being suddenly a guy that's like they're not interested in throwing you the ball. But I also feel like if you feel that way about the guy, why did you draft him where you did? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like if you're gonna draft somebody like that, you must have been thinking that you're gonna feed him the ball. So
Mhm.
I would.
I don't know. Maybe that wasn't in the Call of Duty game plan. Oh, sorry. I mean, they on the side of the oh,
Bada-boom.
Jolene, who do you think is going to end up winning that one?
I'm with you. I like the Rams. I like their defense. Jared Verse, Byron Young, they could have some fun chasing down someone.
Yeah.
The running backs, they still have Kyron Williams, they still have Rivers, Cup, Johnson, Parkinson, Robinson. Their offense is going to be okay, as long as Cup doesn't get injured. If Cooper goes down, then they're in real trouble.
Yep, that's fair to say.
But yeah, I like the defense for LA. I think they've drafted well, and they're trying to make up for that loss of Aaron Donald. But I mean, this is an in-division rivalry. They always play tough. So yeah, I'm gonna go Rams, even though they're on the road.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens, when the Rams actually have draft picks to use. They actually use them pretty well. So
sounds like Broncos now.
Got you. And that brings us along to, as we call it, a 5-star matchup when our Steelers hit the field. So Steelers are headed to Denver. The Steelers are right now favored by 2.5. I'll kick this off since I haven't started yet. I think Pittsburgh wins and covers here. I just don't think the Denver offense is, after seeing how well the Steelers defense played last week. I think they're going to kind of build on that performance and get even better. Especially if Denver, tries to focus on incorporating the run, kind of more like Jolene brought up. I think that they're going to try that. I don't think it's going to work. We're going to have Bo Nix in 3rd and long. And ultimately, I think that's going to end up working out. The real question is, whether is the Steelers offense really going to move the ball, outside of George Pickens. Hopefully we can run the ball on the perimeter and stuff. So we always do a score at the end of this one too, Jolene. So I'm going to say it's going to be a really ugly 16-6 win for Pittsburgh. I'm not sure quite how I arrived at 16, but it feels weird enough. It just so Korey, how about you? How do you think this will finish?
I think it's going to be ugly. Until I'm shown that we can move the ball, I'm not going to believe that we can. And not move the ball for touchdowns. I'm not going to believe that we can. If we really hammer the middle of the field and we use the whole field, I think that we could actually, do a little damage, especially with Pat, and we get Calvin Austin getting some crossers, but we're gonna have to want to throw those, and I don't necessarily know if we will. I think we're just gonna try and run the ball a lot. I think the game's gonna be slow. I think the Broncos are probably gonna try and do the same thing, not let Bo Nix take too many traditional dropbacks with TJ Watt gearing up on him. So I'm gonna say, I think it's ugly too. I'm going to say 17-13, which would be a Steelers cover, but I could just see this being a slog. So it really wouldn't shock me if we lost, but I just think that we're a little stronger in the areas that the Broncos are weak compared to them being strong in our weak areas. So I think it's more of a matchup thing this week.
Korey, I don't know what you're asking for in these crossing routes and middle of the field crap. Keep that to yourself. Just joking. Will, why don't you go next here?
Yeah. I like I said earlier, the matchup to me is just, is a problem. if the Steelers get ahead, especially, I think the Broncos are going to have some trouble. So, if I'm the Broncos, I'm going to work a little bit against type. I'm going to try to attack the Steelers in my early possessions rather than being super conservative like they were last week, and take my chances to try to get a lead, because I feel like the Broncos with the lead in this game could lean on their running game a little bit. It could try to pick apart the Steelers a little bit, whatever the Steelers can give them going down the field. But if you have to make big chunk plays and you have to catch up from being a couple scores down, it's going to be a very, very bad scene, particularly because of this, TJ Watt. It's just like, no matter what you do, you want to put an extra guy over there. Well, then the two guys get confused and he splits them or whatever, right? So I think there was a play last week where there was a running back or tight end chipping and the tackle, and TJ went sort of towards the outside. Both blockers went that way, and then he cut back to the inside and went in the inside gap and blew up the play. So it's like, when you're dealing with a guy like that, it almost doesn't matter how many you use to block it, because you're either making something else weak or you're taking somebody out of the pass pattern that the quarterback can't dump it to, whatever. So kind of a problem if all of that happens. I love the under in this game. The under last week was 42.5. I was like, bang the under. And now it moved down all the way to 36.5. And I think it's still not low enough. So I have a score. I don't know, all week I was thinking 16-10, but I think I'm going to say 19-10 Steelers in this game. I don't think they'll crack 20, just because they're pushing the the time of possession and trying to have these long possessions. And I think 16 is a possibility if George Pickens, if they can't get these, even the occasional deep shot downfield to Pickens, because of, Patrick Surtain just not working out, then I think their chances of scoring even 19 are very small.
And just so Jolene knows, all three of us picking a Steelers win is a rarity.
First time in a while. Yeah, first time.
Like Homer, this happens maybe once a season.
Well, since in the last couple of years anyway, yeah.
I've been on at least. This never happens. She's probably sitting here thinking, "Oh, Steelers podcast."
Now she's going to pick the Broncos to win. Watch, she's talked all that big game, but she's had no expectations, and now.
Yes.
Oh man.
You are the guest speaker. The last pick of this game falls to you.
Woohoo! Oh man. Honestly, I hate to do it too, because in my pick'em, I've actually picked Steelers to win on this one. Score, I think it's gonna be, like you guys are saying, it's gonna be ugly. So I'm gonna say like 17-16. It's gonna be like our Raiders game from last year. Just something's gonna go wrong and we won't be able to recover from it. So yeah, I don't know if Bo's gonna be able to beat this defense, because it's gonna be rough. But if he does, I'll be thrilled.
Big loader. Hey, you're not old enough to remember, none of you are, but I remember seeing John Elway's first game in the NFL, playing the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1983. And the famous Elway quote was like, he got up to the line of scrimmage and he looked over at Jack Lambert slobbering with no teeth. It was just like reconsidering his life choices at that point. And he was worse by far, I think I would say, than Bo Nix was last week. He was worse than Will Levis played last week.
Yeah, I mean, he was
like the fourth quarter of the Chicago Tennessee game. That's what Elway looked like basically the whole game. So they pulled.
If I remember correctly, he was like 1 of 8 or 2 of 8 in that game versus the Steelers, and he was benched. So yeah.
And that's So it's hopefully not that bad. We don't wish that on anyone, because then maybe Bo Nix would become a Hall of Famer. So.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, well, so I only have one concern here. We just all picked Pittsburgh to win.
Yep.
Usually, when we all agree on something, we're horribly wrong about it. So, Jolene, I will hold this against you just to just to jinx the outcome. But no, I can't.
That's last week.
What's that, Korey?
All three of us picked the loss just last week.
I know. That's what I mean. Our fortunes never favor us when we all agree on something. So, well, either way, we are going to find out how that pans out this weekend. As I believe it's a 1:00 kickoff. Is that right, gentlemen?
Well, no, it's a for us here on the East Coast, 4:25 p.m.
Oh, that's an afternoon game. Even better. That means I can sleep in.
Indeed.
Oh,
Yep, 2:25 in Denver.
gotcha.
I have what it means for me is that I don't have to rush back from playing football in order to make kickoff, which is for 1 p.m. games. The traffic is worse and worse in New York. So during the pandemic, I can make it back in 15 minutes, but now it's turned into an hour. So
I bet. All right. Well,
man, these afternoon games, everyone hates them except for me. I love it.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us here on the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by Korey Karbowsky, Wil Masisak, and our guest this week, Jolene from the heart of Broncos country. So with all that, thank you for joining us. And here we go, Steelers.
Here we go. Western Slope.
Woohoo!